This reading is from Rays of the Same Light by Swami Kriyananda, based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. This is a Bhagavad Gita commentary entitled The Little Wave and the Infinite Ocean. And this passage is from the 9th chapter in the English translation of Sir Edwin Arnold. By me the whole vast universe of things is spread abroad, by me the unmanifest. In me are all existences contained, not I in them. Students of metaphysical thought often confuse the finite spirit in man with the infinite spirit, the soul of the individual with the oversoul. A superficial acquaintance with the teachings of India, or with their modern offshoot, the so-called New Thought movement, makes this equation seem plausible. It is not, however, a teaching of the great masters. Self-realization is, in fact, the ancient definition of the soul's state of union with God. The Lord is the sole reality, the one true self of the universe. He constitutes the very essence of our being. It is to His level of awareness that we should always aspire. It is the thought of oneness with Him that we should strive even now to live in that thought. There is a difference, however, between the self which is speaking when one says, I am hungry, and that infinite self beyond body and mind, which is God. As Paramahansa Yogananda pointed out, although the wave is made up entirely of ocean water, as a wave it cannot be equated with the ocean in its vastness. Superficial students of metaphysical thought are often heard referring to their inner God self, as though they themselves were the infinite Lord. Have they any idea what they are saying? One is reminded of a certain spokesman for the New Age who announced gleefully, I am God. Such a statement can only mean that he thought of himself as the creator of the universe. There are people who take belief in a personal absolute so far as to insist, when I die, the universe will die with me. See the absurd heights to which philosophy can carry one, if one is willing to abandon the firm ground of common sense and soar like a balloon without ballast into the skies of abstract reasoning. Each one of us is certainly a manifestation of the infinite spirit. God is not, as the theologians claim, wholly other. Jesus Christ made this point forcefully and justified it by the Scriptures. When his critics accused him of blasphemy for the claim, I and my Father are one, he replied that they too were gods. Elsewhere he told people also, the kingdom of God is within you. In this passage of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that God is within man in the sense that he is omnipresent, not in the sense that human beings share his omnipresence. We can achieve omnipresence, but only by merging our egos in God, in that limitless state of being, which the yoga teachings define as samadhi. One must die to himself if he would live in God. Jesus Christ said it also, for whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. Nothing could be more self-contradictory than for a person steeped in ego consciousness, with all the attachments and desires to which the flesh is heir, to declare, as some people do in their pretensions to enlightenment, I never pray, for in my God-self I dwell forever in oneness. Far better would it be if they approached the infinite Lord with humility and devotion. Immature declarations of oneness may easily cause a person to swell up with spiritual pride. The Bhagavad Gita, however, makes it clear that the soul is contained in God, not God in the soul. Another way of putting it would be to say that it was God who dreamed us into existence, not we who dreamed Him. Indeed, if man were the dreamer, we would all be able to duplicate the genius of Shakespeare, the marvels of scientific invention, the countless experiences of human lives, the very grandeur of the galaxies. Obviously, we cannot. We are but figments of the thought of the infinite dreamer's consciousness. Individually, we could never have brought this dream into existence. Another mistake people make is to imagine that if God is in everything, he must therefore evolve with his creation. While things change, the essence of things never changes. God is that ultimate eternal essence. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord, although existing in all things, remains forever untouched by anything. If we would live in our God self, to use this oft-heard expression, we must recognize that that greater reality, albeit expressing itself through us, is yet infinitely greater than we are. We should participate in the cosmic drama with humility, therefore, and with the devotion due on the part of the little reality to the infinite good. Thus, through the Bhagavad Gita, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. This is something that we hear from time to time in different ways on the spiritual path. We hear in different versions. I mean, Master tells the wonderful story in this audio recording of his. It's nice because you can play it and hear him tell it. He says that when he was a boy, he was visiting different saints, and he heard of one saint, and he went to him, and all of the man's disciples were all adoring him and worshiping him. And then Master said, I bowed to him, and he said, and I bowed very sincerely. I didn't touch his feet, he said, because I only touched the feet of my master. But he said, but when I bowed to this man, to seeing my devotion and to impress me further, he said, I am God. And so Master said, I sprang up and said, is it? You don't say so. And then he said, and he became very angry. And so Master used to carry a little mirror with him, and he pulled the mirror out of his pocket and he held it to the man's face. And he said, look at the God, with his face all broken up with sourness. And then he turned and walked out. And the man got up from his seat in front of everybody and chased after Master. And Master said, he got a hold of me. And he said, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for what I said. And Master said, you know, I saw that you're a great soul, but the devotion of a few disciples has spoiled you. You know, why do you have to say that I am God? You know, the little wave cannot say it's the whole ocean. We can only say the ocean has become this little wave, many little waves, this one too. And the man apologized. And Master said that proved he was a saint, that in front of all his disciples, being corrected and humiliated, he could apologize very humbly for seeing his mistake. Which is a good lesson in itself too for us. If we find out we're wrong, we should be thrilled, because we've been wrong the whole time and not known it. And when it means we're a devotee, it means we're devoted to truth. We're seeking the truth. Yes, joy, yes, love, yes, God, but also truth. It has to be. In fact, that's really what makes someone a devotee, because when you have a discussion with someone and you say, well, this is true or this isn't true, meaning you both arrive at something that's true, and if the person says it may be true, but I don't care, well, then they're not ready yet for the path. Because that's one thing we have to all agree on, that we want to know what is true. There's, of course, facets of the truth, aspects of the truth, different perspectives, angles, certainly, yes. But still, truth is truth. And why do we crave it even? Because it brings great peace. Somehow this understanding that there are laws of life, and as I uncover them, I will live a happier life. I'll be more in harmony with life. Things will work out better for me. Maybe not outwardly, but certainly inwardly. What lesson do I have to learn from this? And so on. And so Swamiji encountered a man, as he's mentioned in the reading, who said, when I die, the universe will cease to exist. And he was sort of a follower of the Zen teaching, but of course it was misapplied. It's not the Zen teaching, I believe, the truth at its heart that says this. You know, Zen, of course, comes from the Sanskrit word dhyan. That's where the sort of etymology of that word. And so it's interesting. When I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, it's all one. It's all the same. So anyway, that man since has died, and we still seem to be here. But I don't know if one of us goes, then maybe the whole thing will go. Who knows? But no, of course not, because that was Swamiji's answer to the man. I don't think to his face. He was the leader of another spiritual work. But he said, could this man, if he dreamed this whole universe, could he dream the poetry of Shakespeare? Could he dream the great Tamil poetry when he doesn't even speak Tamil? That's pretty impressive, to write poetry in a language you don't even know. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that if you dreamed this, you had to make it all the rest of it too. And so also when we go to sleep, we have our own little dreams, and then we wake up and then to the same dream. You see? So somebody else must be dreaming it in between. And it's God who's keeping this whole thing going. We don't go to sleep and have the same dream, even our own dreams we can't maintain. So you use a little bit of logic. Of course, in everything there's a positive and a negative. There's a germ of truth, even in falsehood. These like this. We always have to understand it's not sort of completely wrong or completely right. People who are affirming that they have a God self are right in the sense that they are a spark of the divine. And that's a very important teaching, because often people will not feel that. They may say, yes, 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 I know I have the immortal Atma within me, but it is so heaped over with sin. You see, I mean, in all religions, I thought it was something that was predominant in the West, and I came in India and find people talking the same nonsense. Different ways to feel badly about ourselves. Ridiculous. I mean, look, as Master said, if you want to go back to the fundamental start of it all, the cause of it all, Master said, Lord, we didn't ask to be created. I mean, were we floating around saying, hey, God, here, put me on earth. I need a body and I need some money also? No. We didn't ask. And he also said you created this Maya and suffering, but you never tried it out yourself first. You never experimented on yourself. You said, here, sip some of this poison coffee. Tell me what you think. You didn't try it first. And so why is it fair to experiment on us? It's a good point. And he said, it doesn't cause any animosity or any different, trouble between me and God. He gives me the power to think these things, so I think them. And he said, God's answer is always the same. I'm bringing them all back to me. So he said, what are you going to say? But Master said, even though I know the answer, I don't like the answer. Because the flight home is not boarding after satsang. If we were about to go home, we'd say, listen, I can endure some trouble. There's Kosus are back, fine, no problem. We're going home, by evening time we will be there, so we can endure that. But it's not that. It takes time. To God, it doesn't take much time. Even in the astral world, so the masters tell us, they see time passing very differently on Earth, much faster, you could say, in a way. It's sort of contradictory because they're with us, but they're also seeing time going fast. So, do they blink and suddenly we're gone? I don't know. But in any case, maybe we can all talk about it when we're there together. Not soon. But this whole feeling that, again, God is the one who put us here. And then on top of that, first of all, don't blame yourself. If you want to blame anyone, blame him. And then on top of that, he creates all of these, traps and wrong turns, and digs pits in the path and covers them over with grass with a sign that says, everything's safe here. And then, so Swamiji said he puts everything against us, and then why should he be upset when we fall into the trap? We've got the deck stacked against us at first. Because on the other hand, God is also trying to call us home. As Master said, God tempts through temptation, but also tries to rescue you. So we have both sides to it. And so temptation to do the wrong thing. And then also that call to say, resist the urge, resist the bait. And so we have to understand that God is on our side in all of this. And there's a spark of God in us. And so when we become more, when we grow spiritually, we become more of who we actually are. Not we become better than we were, or we somehow are lesser and become more, or we somehow were, not worthy and then we become barely acceptable. It isn't that way at all. We become more who we are. We become fully who we already are. That's in fact why purification is such a good word, because purification means to restore to wholeness, to restore to a pure state, to remove impurities, to remove anything that isn't a part of the thing. In this case, the thing is us. And so that's why it's helpful to think of the spiritual path as a process of purification, of removing these foreign things. And so anything that we shed over time, habits, wrong ideas about things, tendencies to anger, or other things that we're letting go of, think of that. Well, that's not me anyway. And so again, this purification means returning to who I really am. Healing is another good image, that on the spiritual path we're trying to heal ourselves of different karma, different injuries, different wrong understandings, whatever you want to call it. But healing is returning to health. Someone doesn't think when they've healed that somehow now I am acceptable and before I was this horrible thing. No, I was injured. I was weakened. I was diseased. Something wrong that was making me a little bit less strong than I normally should be. And so when you come back to health, you don't sort of stand before all saying, "Lo, I am healthy." But it is just that, no, I'm as I should be. And so that's how we are. Again, cleaning, the same image, becoming clean. Doesn't mean we're unclean, just means there's a little bit of some, foreign matter stuck to us. Just get it off. It's not us anyway. So this thought of the divine within me is a very helpful thought, and we should live that way. And we should live in the consciousness. As Master said, don't say, "When will I have God?" You have Him already. And he said, love Him. He never denies us. He said, we deny Him. And he said, trust God, don't trust yourself. And at first you think, oh gosh, don't trust myself. But then if I think I'm trusting God, but I can't trust myself, how do I know that I'm That's not what he's saying. He's saying, don't count on your own strength. And my God, how often is that true? Do we find ourselves in situations where we're just powerless? We just can't do anything about the situation. And we just have to trust in God to take care of it. Trust in God that whatever is happening to us is for our own good. It's been a little challenging for Dharmini and me, having been away from America. We're very glad to be here at home, but having been not being able to visit, only because we've had some friends leave the body recently, as many of you know. Nayaswami Sevaji last year, and Anandiji, and just 2 days ago, Nayaswami Nalini. And these are people who we've known for 25 and 30 years and have been close friends. Not close in the sense of calling each other up on the phone every day, but close in the sense that you all might feel too with each other, that because we're children of Master, because we're practicing Kriya, those who are, or disciples, those who are, we feel a harmony in that. Sometimes we feel closer to somebody, a fellow disciple, a fellow devotee, who we may not have spoken that much to, than some of the people even in our own circle, daily circle, because of the similarity of vibration, the similarity of aspiration. Of course, we did speak with these great souls also. I don't mean it was just my soul bows to your soul from a mile away. We did have conversations and meals, and Dharmini worked with Sevaji for many years in the Crystal Clarity Publishing and also in the Expanding Light Retreat. Anandiji worked at the Expanding Light Retreat with Dharmini also. I worked for a time in the computer department, and it was a very fun job. It was not very overly taxing because it was sort of solving computer problems that usually were pretty straightforward. The harder problems were worked on by other people. But basically going to people's desks and helping them with this or that, and the printer won't work, and it's like, gosh, the printer won't work. You press print, and it's not coming out of the printer, and that's funny. And look, this is the printer plug. Let's try putting it in. And people would always say to me, thank you for not making me feel stupid. And I just said, well, look, I mean, I didn't walk in and say it's unplugged. I had to sort of figure it out. And then, so, I mean, it happened to me too. And so, but it was nice because it sent me to every department. And especially in those days, there was still a lot of computer trouble that people had. By now, I think everybody is either born with computer skills in their DNA or they've absorbed it by now. And so it's just, there's so much that's just automatic, or it's all through the web anyway, and we all know how to use the web browsers. But at that time, there were regular calls. This isn't working, that isn't working, I need a new computer set up for a new employee, whatever. And so it got me visiting everybody all around the village. And I spent time with Nalini ji, she, who many of you may have connected with unknowingly because she ran Radio Ananda. And so if you've ever listened to anything on Radio Ananda, you heard it because she put it there. She set the programming, changed it, whether it was week to week or every 2 weeks, I forget the schedule. So I happened to live at the village at the time when she was creating Radio Ananda. One person had this idea, internet radio, and we were saying, huh? No, it's amazing. It's like radio, but it's on the internet. How does that happen? Well, anyway, never mind. I'm going to do it. Okay, go ahead, do it. You know, again, ahead of his time. And then she was the one who was, you know, running it, maintaining it, and all that. So she had some, you know, little minor technical issues here and there. And so at the time, you know, I just thought of, helping somebody with software. In retrospect now, I'm just so glad that it was that brought us together. It's something we should always appreciate. We may be serving with someone here, we may just be having coffee, and yet it's a superficial thing because it's hard to come up to someone and say, please share from the depths of your soul. You know, they sort of say, Orimsha, and then just head the other way. You can't talk like that. Master's way was to be natural. And it takes time to get to know each other. It does. Conversations. And it's helpful sometimes to ask someone, so, you know, where are you from? Or what is your work? And so on, because it starts the conversation. We shouldn't identify these things as ourselves. Otherwise, you'd have to say, I was a stonemason in the last life, and I was an engineer in Greece before that, and I was a warrior more times than I can count, and also a cook, and, you know, who knows what I'm doing now. And so it's stupid to think of that, and yet it's an easy way to then begin to connect with one another, learn more about another, express an interest. You never know what you'll discover. I've been surprised so many times by hearing, you know, someone's background, someone's story. I remember this wasn't even a devotee. I remember a man who, for whatever reason, when I was younger, I was certainly arrogant. And when I met, there was a man who was in computer research, and I was in computer research, and I just was not that impressed with him. Why? I don't know that I was impressed with myself. What did I have to show for anything? I was still a student. Somehow there was something about this guy that bothered me. I think I felt he was a little insincere, but in any case, the judgment was mine and the error was mine. And the last conversation I ever had with him, it was at they were sending me off because I was going back to school. It was a summer job. And I remember him saying, just as an aside, I forget even how it came up. He said, I just remember flying in those helicopters in Vietnam. It was such a different experience. And I thought, oh my God, you know, he's been in the war, and it's heartbreaking. Every side of that story is heartbreaking, not just, you know, the soldier's side, And I just said, my God, what has he seen? And here I am, you know, going, So it definitely put me in my place. And so we don't know what people have been through. And also, so again, if we judge anyone, we should judge ourselves and then not even do that, as I was saying earlier. Because we're all in the same soup, every one of us trying to get out, trying to get to God. And we will get there. So identify with that, but it's easy in a way, because I was wondering, you know, at Ananda we don't often have that problem of where someone comes and says, you know, I am God, and if I sneeze, a few of you are going to vanish, and things like that. And that people tend to have humility, people tend to have devotion, but, you know, that's why, for example, having a guru is so helpful. and why being a guru is kashtam, which is to say being a false guru is what I mean. Is, it's just so funny. Even in India, where these things are generally understood, still there is the saying that the gurus are many, but rare is the disciple. And you say, well, that's not true. I see this guru has like 6 billion disciples, and so obviously, there's not rare. There's an element to it, a disciple who actually is willing to follow the discipline. But also it's that tendency for the ego to say, hey, I've read a book, I shall become the spiritual teacher now. And then for someone to say instead, let me learn. And so, but Master was so great. And Swamiji's sharing of Master and Swamiji begins his own life story by saying sometimes a soul insignificant in himself, or a person insignificant in himself, becomes significant because of his connection with a great soul. I'm putting it badly. It says it much better than that. But basically, the reason I'm sharing this is because I spent my life with Yoganandaji, and for that reason, it would be worth hearing about my experiences. Because he said, in fact, his own book is not autobiographical. The New Path. It's my life with Paramahansa Yogananda, and there's a part of his life in there in the beginning before meeting Master, but that's only in the context of meeting Master. And so Swamiji was so bowed before Master because he had seen his greatness that it was easy for us to feel that way towards Master, as opposed to feeling that we are something. And then we also saw Swamiji's greatness, as humble as he was. Still, he was smarter than anyone I knew. He was more gifted, 400 pieces of music and, 149 books. And things you can't even believe. And probably in some future time, they might try to conspire to say that Swami Kriyananda was actually a committee or an organization or a pen name that several people used altogether, because it isn't possible that one person could have created so much. They're saying that even now about Shakespeare and other people. Someone made the case that Patanjali was actually not a person, but that the name that people signed to different things that they wrote, and it became, because it's not possible for a person to write so clearly and so on. It's amazing. You can imagine Patanjali going, Avriya. Because people only know their own greatness or lack thereof and just couldn't imagine. But, I was with Swamiji, and we have all seen his videos, and we've all seen or heard Master's voice, or seen a video of him, or read Autobiography of a Yogi. And more than that, we've probably been with him in past lives, because there's some kind of inner recognition. That's the thing you can't teach and impart. Somebody just recognizes this is truth, or recognizes this is mine, or recognizes he is mine. And that's just there from the past. That's the only way you can recognize, recognize. You see, you sort of see again, you think again something that you had thought before. You realize, it's almost like you remember, oh yeah, okay. And so people have said that, seeing Yoganandaji's face on the cover of Autobiography of a Yogi, somehow it was hauntingly familiar. How could it be familiar? Not only because not if you were with him in this life or not, but in his last life he probably didn't have the same face. But somehow it's familiar anyway. And so that's beautiful, the way God does that. So on the one hand, we should affirm our identity as waves of the sea. And then remember, as Master said, the saints are the little waves, the waves that are trying to merge in the sea, that are trying to flatten themselves. And it is the egoic people that are the huge waves, being separate. See how large I am. And they are very big until then the tsunami wave comes, and then they say, whoops. There's always some bigger wave. And so luckily that's not the contest. It's to be one with the sea. As Master said, I, a tiny bubble of laughter, have become the sea of mirth itself. What a beautiful thought to just be, in that sea. And we don't lose our own identity. Master said, I, the cosmic sea, watch the little ego floating in me. You have to have an ego if you're in a body to keep the body alive and going. But we don't have to be identified with the body. We don't have to think that this is all that we are. And so you see that also here, where people will come in having been the most spiritual person they know. The most spiritual person they know is themselves. So they come in and sort of say, hey, hi, how you doing? Would you like to hear about my meditations? And it's because they're feeling lonely, wanting to connect with other people who share the same interest. That's a natural and a good desire. But then to say, but putting themselves forward, well, you find that many people have had experiences like that, and many people have deep meditations and strong intuitions, and you've come to the right place. But, do you really want to be the tallest wave here? That's not the competition. The competition is to be the smallest wave. So, that usually people calm down pretty quickly, because they realize that they can be comfortable, they can be friendly, they don't have to be sort of like this, even on the spiritual turf and spiritual topics. Usually they understand and relax, because it's our nature again. We want to connect, we want to be with others. So keep this in mind for ourselves and everyone else, because everyone else is that same wave of the sea. And whether they're conscious of it or not, whether they're interested in finding God or not, again, Swamiji points out, everybody is seeking happiness. In whatever they're seeking happiness behind that. As Swamiji said in the affirmation, behind every desire is the wish for self-expansion. I want to acquire more, because then somehow I will be more. That can be the desire. A friend of mine said before she was on the spiritual path, she wanted to have as many children as possible. I think she wanted to populate a small town or something like that. Just that I'm going to have as many children as I can. And it's sort of, I couldn't relate well to the desire, but she was saying that, I realized in retrospect, I somehow felt that the more children there would be, the more there would be of me. Somehow I would be expanding, on my consciousness or myself. And she realized better to try to, do it mentally. In this case, children or whatnot, you find they have minds of their own. And if you don't believe me, don't you have a mind of your own? Because we may not all have children, but we all were children. And so in all of these things, and we can see that. We should question that sometimes in our desires. We may have a desire we don't understand, or we don't want to understand, but we should understand. The thing in itself may be perfectly good for us, perfectly either harmless or even helpful. So it's not that the thing is bad, but the desire of this will somehow make me more than I am is not true. And so we may say, well, the advantage of getting this car, for example, is I'll be able to drive my mother to the hospital, such a sacred, dear God, give me a car so I can take care of my parents. And parents will say, wonderful prayer. And it's true, because it is of service to other people. See, that's a way to not just say, give this to me and make sure my neighbors notice. See that car in the driveway? That's not a visiting uncle. That is me. So, not that kind of thing. Because you find very quickly that it isn't that people say, oh, wow. They say, I'm going to get one too, and bitter. People just become jealous. And this thing that we thought was going to bring us happiness becomes a source of jealousy, and we even can lose friends over it. It's terrible. And so we should be careful if we find that in ourselves, that tendency. Because I feel lesser because I don't have it. Ridiculous. So all of these things I'm saying we should watch in ourselves, because they're all based on untruth. As Master said, I am what I am before my conscience and God. Praise cannot make me better, nor blame make me less. And he had plenty of praise and blame in his life. It's hard to believe now, thinking, but he had plenty. He himself, when Sri Yukteswarji said, "What do you have an interest in organizational work?" and we are all extensions and part of his organizational work, he said no. And he said, whatever the leader does or does not do, he is criticized for. And then Sri Yukteswar said, it's like, well, if you don't believe it, just try it. It's amazing how when you become a leader, they give you a T-shirt that has a big bullseye right on the front and on the back. And so, a target. So, but Master Sri Yukteswar said, do you want to keep the whole divine chana, the cheese, to yourself? He said, would you or anyone else have found God if a generous line of masters had not shared what they knew and made an effort to help others? And so Master said it clarified for him the whole thing. Of course, it was clear to him already, but he writes in a way that we can relate to it. Because again, the whole purpose of a organization, which I don't even like the word, spiritual family is better, is just to share and just to give. Swamiji said that of Ananda. Ananda will thrive as long as it thinks in terms of what it's giving, not what it's receiving. And that's true not only for Ananda, but for Ananda members, obviously. Because there is no Ananda. It's not that, there's some computer running the organization, while we're sleeping. It's just us here. So keep this thought of being one with God. Understand that everyone else seeking happiness is seeking God in that happiness. Feel your connection, your friendship with everyone. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Most of them are doing the best they can. And if they're not, they still are doing the best they can. They just don't know better. But meanwhile, spend time with positive people. Spend time with people who encourage you, either literally or just by their vibration. Because, I was hearing about a friend of mine today. Recently, a friend was telling me about a mutual friend of ours. And this young man said, because his parents were disappointed that he'd become a monk. And Prasanna was telling me the story, and Prasanna said, the man said, no matter what I did, my parents would have been disappointed in me. Then he added, but they're my parents, and so I will support them, as is my duty. And so I honored both things in the man, and it's sad, because it shouldn't be that way. It's just that people have certain ideas about what should be and what Srinivasan's son has done, and so, it's sad, because there's no reason to have that separation in a family, and he was being a good son anyway. But we really don't have a right to be disappointed in anybody, even in ourselves. Because suppose we do something wrong, well, just fix it. Just do it better the next time. We can only go forward from where we are, and wherever we are is fine as a place to begin, not a place to remain. Because we want to grow, we want to learn, we want to heal. But wherever we are, let's just accept that, and then just look not at the position, but at the vector, the velocity vector, the direction. And as Swamiji said, if we want to judge ourselves at all, we should judge ourselves based on our aspiration. Judge ourselves based on what we're wanting, what we're seeking, not whatever we may have attained at the moment. I was thinking to myself, my gosh, 10 years from now, I'll be whatever age that will be, 10 years older, plus 10, and it just seems like such a short time, and already I'll be that age. But then I thought, 10 years ago, I was this age minus 10, and I didn't know anything about anything back then, or I was just so young, or that seemed so long ago. So I realized, just forget it. Just let's be where we are and go forward in God. Okay, God bless you.